There, today we're going to add support for a .NET Core server to the saving card without payment Stripe sample. So we're going to talk about how you would collect card details and save those, but not collect a payment up front. And this is going to be done in an SCA ready way. So we'll walk through like the secure customer authentication, which may involve 3D Secure. So thanks, Shaw, for opening this issue. Letting us know that we didn't have this support for this. So I'm just going to work directly from the sample here, and we're going to create a new server. So I'm going to go into the server directory, and I'm going to add a new server called .NET, a new server directory called .NET. And in there, let's see, cd.net. I'm actually going to use the Stripe sample for developer office hours as our base. So I'm going to say Stripe samples create developer office hours. Just because we have, there's like a bunch of config that we use to, oh, that's weird. Okay, interesting. Huh, okay. Not sure what happened with that initial error. So we have the Stripe developer office hours. Interesting. What is going on here? Oh, maybe because I'm inside of a repository? All right. Stripe samples create developer office hours. It's going to come with the .NET MVC application, .NET Core. So in the server directory here, we already have like a bunch of stuff kind of pre-configured. So I'm just going to copy everything that's in the server directory from developer office hours into the saving card without payment servers.net. And okay, so let's see how far that got us. Saving. Okay, so if I open this up and go to server, we have .NET here, and inside of this .NET directory, we have a .NET MVC application. So I'm going to delete this. Okay, so we don't care about debugging. In our Stripe options, this is generally where we keep track of kind of like environment variables. In practice, you'll want to use like the built-in .NET, likely use the built-in .NET management for secrets, but for Stripe samples, we need to follow the same pattern for all servers so that we can just kind of like make the environment variables the same and more easily manage it with the Stripe CLI. Okay, so I'm looking at program CS here just to check on a couple of things. And okay, get environment variables static dir. Okay, so that's correct. That'll load up the client, which lives in a path defined by the static directory environment variable. So that's usually like // client if you're installing it with Git. So if you're just cloning this repository, you'll want to go up 2 directories and over. But if you're installing with Stripe samples create, you'll want to go just up 1 and over, if that makes any sense. So I just wanted to confirm that. And then we also want to look at startup and here. Okay, so we're not requiring HTTPS. That's cool. It's just for testing and automation. It makes it so much easier. So let's see. I wrote a couple of tests for the server. So these are RSpec tests. They're written in Ruby, but they should work for any HTTP server. And I think what might make sense is let's just fire this up. So let's say cd server, cd.net. We need a .env file, which I know I have over here. So your .env file is going to look like .env.example. It's going to look something like this. It's a YAML file that has environment variables set. So we have the publishable key, secret key, Stripe version, webhook secret, and the static directory. I noticed that the Stripe API version is only used in our Python server, so we might need to go back and update this and rewrite our tests so that they don't depend on a specific API version. Okay, so the next step here is that I want to edit No, I'm just gonna say .NET run program.cs, and this should fire up our server. Maybe. Okay, cool. So the server's running, and now I can run the tests. So if I run just a get for the index, that comes back, and there shouldn't be a public key route because we haven't implemented that. So let's go add the public key route that just returns the public key. So let's come over here. We'll go to our controllers. There's a payments controller, and we want to add a get request here. So HTTP get, and this is going to be something like public key, I believe. Let's just confirm. Yep. So / public key, we're going to have public async task, public key response, and let's see. This is going to return. Or we'll just call it, we'll call the route public key, and we'll implement this. Okay, so in the model, we want to add a new model for the public. Oh, look at that. We have a public key response already. Nice, public key. Okay, so this is what we're going to use, is this public key model, which just has a public key. And I think we can say just return new public key response. And the public key is going to be, let's see, the public key is going to be this.options.value.publishable key, I believe. Let's look at those Stripe options again. So publishable key is what we're using here. So publishable key. So we're returning a new public key response. So that, I think that might work. So .NET run program.cs. So we'll restart the server. Oh, okay, I failed. Doesn't contain an options or something for value. This.options.value with a capital V. Okay, did I get? All right, so let's see. Start this again. .NET run program.cs. Okay, so our server is running. Let's run this test, and it's expecting it to have public key camel case like this. So that's what the front end client is expecting, and we returned public _ key. So we need to go into our public key response definition, and we need to say using Newtonsoft, what is this? Newtonsoft JSON? I can't remember if it's all caps or not. Let's see. It's not all caps. Okay, and then here what we want to do is say like JSON property public key, like that. So that's the shape that we want the key to respond with. Let's see if I run the test. I don't know if we need to reload the server every single time. It looks like we do. That's all right. Okay. Sweet. All right, so that's working. So we got 2 tests passing. Now we need one more route. This is the meat and potatoes of the server side for this sample, and that is to create a setup intent. So this is going to be a post route, I believe. Create setup intent. Okay. Public async task. Setup intent response. I just call the models that I use for model binding in the request and for model binding in the response, I add request and response to the end. I don't know if that's like a best practice or what others do, but that's something that I like to do and like to follow, a pattern I like to follow. So create setup intent. I don't think we have any arguments passed into this to this post route this time, but we want to do 2 things in here. We want to create a customer, and then we also want to create a setup intent. And we want to return the entire setup intent. So let's go change this to setup intent response, setup intent response. And sometimes I might even call this like create setup intent response to match like this function or like the method name. So create setup intent, I might call it create setup intent response, whatever. You can call these whatever you want, setup intent response. And in the response for the setup intent, we are actually gonna expect that we're returning the full Stripe setup intent object. So, let's see. Right, okay, so we wanna say public setup intent and setup intent get set. Okay, and this is going to be returned as, actually, you know what? I think we can just return the entire setup intent. Oops. So I don't think we need that. So we can go back over here and say, we're just going to return a setup intent. Okay, why did I lose my stuff? Setup intent. Okay, so let's first create a customer. So if we pull up the Stripe documentation here for creating a customer, this is the Stripe API docs, and then we can just go to .NET, and we can copy this snippet here, paste it. Okay, so this is going to create a new customer. It turns out that in this sample, we're not passing any arguments when we create the customer. So I think I can just go like that and call the constructor function for the create customer options. In fact, I might be able to just pass null, but for now I'm just going to keep that there in case folks want to add arguments as they're creating their customer. Var customer is equal to this. And then second, we want to create a setup intent. So let's go to the create setup intents example here in .NET. Okay. Oops. Okay. And we don't want to pass, or we don't need to pass payment method types. We're going to just say customer is equal to, and then the ID of the customer. So customer.id. And this will create a setup intent. And I think I can actually just return this. And I can say create async. And I think we have to say await. And then I think we can say return await create async. I think, maybe, let's see. So we are creating a customer. Then we're creating a setup intent with the customer object on the setup intent. This, by passing in the customer ID on the setup intent, what we're doing is saying, create an intent to store payment details for later and associate that intent with this customer so that when we confirm the setup intent on the client side and collect the payment details through elements, that payment method will automatically be attached to the customer object. And so this should be all that we have to do on the server, but let's restart our server and give it a test. Namespace missing. Okay, so I think I need to import Stripe. Let's see. So .NET package remove stripe.net. I'm just going to try to like upgrade .NET remove package. The order of the commands in the .NET CLI is really tough for me to read. It's kind of like learning a new language, like learning Spanish from English or learning Italian from English, where like the order of the words are swapped from what I'm used to. So this is kind of interesting. .NET remove package stripe.net, .NET add package stripe.net. This should re-add the package with the latest version. It's like, I don't know if there's a better way to do this, but this is how I upgrade to the latest version of stripe.net. And then we want to try to rerun this because I think setup intent should be on, am I missing this? The type or namespace setup intent. It should be on it should just be like a model on here. Let's see. Setup intent. Yeah, setup intents, setup intent. Do I need to require entities explicitly? I don't think so. As long as we're requiring Stripe, we should have this. Okay. What is going on here? Controllers, payments controller, setup intent. Yeah. Okay, so maybe the return value here isn't actually a task. Let's see. Is that what's going on? Oh, you know what? I should look at what line this is failing on. Setup intent response. I don't need that anymore. Oh, right. Okay, so I created setup intent response and I thought I deleted it. Okay, there we go. Because I definitely didn't import or add a using statement for the Stripe.net client library inside of our response thing. Okay, so setup intent options. It's going to be this, and this is going to be the setup intent service. This async method lacks the await. Which one? This async method. I totally used await. Which, oh, you know what? It's probably this one doesn't have the await keyword. Yeah, so we can probably just change this to like public key response. Maybe. Does that work? Oh, sweet. Okay. All right, so that removes a warning. And let's see if our tests pass. Ooh, did not pass. What's up here? No API key provided. Set your API key with blah, blah, blah. All right, so did I not set... Okay, so I have .env. Am I not setting the API key? Okay, so I'm going to change these later. Stripe secret key is there. And in startup, secret key. Stripe secret key. All right, so what's going on here? Let's see. Okay. Oh, you know what? All right, so what's happening is that there's two different ways that you can specify API keys. By default, if you create an instance of a client, then you need to use that client directly with your API key, or you can globally set the API key. So here what I did was I created an instance of a Stripe client, but then I didn't actually use it. I used these services which are depending on that global default. So let's go look at the docs here. Custom HTTP client, blah, blah, blah. If I wanted to use, so if I do want to actually use the client, how do I make a request with the client? Stripe configuration. All right, so let's do that. Okay, let's run our tests. And cool. We have all of our samples are passing. So let's open up localhost 4242. And we've got elements is showing up. We can enter our email address and we can enter a card. This is one of the SCA test cards that I've entered. So we should expect to have a modal open where we need to provide some sort of authentication, complete authentication, and we have card setup complete. And that is succeeded for off session, and it's related to a specific customer. And we can't see the customer here, but if we go to the dashboard, the Stripe dashboard, and we go to customers, test data created. Cool. So that was just created, and you know what? We're entering an email, but I didn't see the email address being passed down to the customer ever. So I'm curious if this is actually supposed to be passed down because I didn't add that as a test, and I'm not sure if any of the other servers are actually doing that. But generally, that should be how it works. Those are the pieces that you need for .NET Core. So if you want to stop the video here, go for it. Otherwise, I'm going to go debug and try to figure out why we're not using this email address when we make the request. So let's actually, let's jump over to the client. So I'm going to go up to the client, and then in script.js is where we are writing our client-side code. Okay, so this is kind of a lot. Stripe elements, taking in the public key and setup intent. We're initializing an instance of Stripe. We're initializing an instance of elements, styling the elements, creating a card element, mounting it to that card element. When it's focused, we're giving it focus. When it's blurred, we're removing blur. And then here's where we handle payment submission. Oh, interesting. Okay, cool. So when we confirm card setup, the card details contain the actual email address for the customer. So let's go through this again, and we'll test this out with Jenny Rosen and 4.2s. This time I'm going to use a card that doesn't require 3D Secure, just the 4.2.4.2.4.2 card, and click Submit. We should now have a new customer, and this new customer's payment method is 4.2.4.2. That's good. And their email address does have this Jenny Rosen 22222. So that's cool. So that is totally working as expected. So yeah, we'll end it here. Hopefully that's useful. Thanks again, Shaw, for opening that issue, and I will make a PR with this code, and hopefully that's useful. All right, see you next time.